Please, thank you. I think we're ready to call to order. For the time, we have quorum. So, 6:01 will be calling to order on February 15, 2023, Board of Entry Advisory Committee meeting. We'll do a quick roll call, and we'll welcome as well our new members, the new appointed members. So we'll start with a roll call. Monica Salinas.
Here.
Welcome back, Monica, and our mayor appointee.
Thank you.
Carlos Fernandez. Here. We have District 2, Ricardo Cervantes. He's pending oath, so he's not with us today. J.D. Gonzalez.
Present.
Present. Orfelio Quintanilla. Present. Luis Hinojosa and Juan Pasquel both emailed that they will be out of town and will not be able to make it, so they will be excused. Arturo Dominguez.
Present.
Ramiro Richer, present. David Quigg is out of town. Also, and Gene Lindgren.
Present.
And then we have also a new appointee representing the Association of Laredo Forwarding Agents, Rodolfo Garza.
Present.
Robert Morris.
Present.
Jerry Hinojosa. Present.
Maldonado,
No, Jerry Hinojosa, and Jerry Maldonado is present. Jerry Jason.
no? Okay.
Or just, does he go by Jason or Jerry? Yeah. But Gerardo Maldonado is present. And Jerry Hinojosa is absent. And then, did I miss anybody from the, okay, perfect. So we have, we'll go to item number 3. Do we have any public or citizen comments? Nobody? Okay. Then we would like to pass on to item number 4, approval of the minutes for our December 7th, 2022 meeting.
Motion to approve. Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And items, we'll go ahead and jump into number 5, items for discussion. Number 1, update on World Trade Bridge Fast Lanes relocation projects, and any other matter incident there too. Please, Mr. Mon, thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the committee. Yvette Limon for the record. Today, to provide you all an update on the World Trade Bridge Fast Lanes relocation project and the expansion project is Mr. Sid Milkey from SEA. He will be making the presentation.
All right, welcome, Mr. Milkey.
Good evening, Chairman and committee members. Again, my name is Sid Milkey. I'm the Structural Engineering Associates, and we are the consultants for the World Trade Bridge expansion and also for the Fast Lane. I don't have a handout for the Fast Lane tonight because it is running trucks through the Fast Lane today. They started, I believe, 2 weeks ago, initially with testing. CBP put all their computers in and started testing. As far as I know, all lanes are running. They're all open and available. I will be going tomorrow and just doing a brief inspection to make sure that we had a few little glitches, that we had a deadbolt here and a little bit of water seepage there, but I'm going to go check on those tomorrow. But I want to see how well everything is flowing. I'm told that things are flowing well. Traffic is moving directly through, off the bridge, straight off the bridge, straight up the middle of the port of entry and into I-69W. I'm going to be interested to see how long it takes to process those trucks and do a little timing to see how fast they're going today, because I anticipate that may be speeding up over time.
Mr. Milkey,
Yes.
Go ahead.
are they doing x-rays on every single truck going in through?
Right now, there are no x-rays on any of the trucks going through the fast lane. They're being treated just like they were in the existing port of entry. They have a mobile VACUS available if they do want to take any of the trucks off to the side. There is a portion of that facility that was designed for that purpose. The Z portal right now is not in operation. When it was taken out of operation some 2 years ago, I guess, for construction, CBP reorganized their budgetary process, and they're now having to allocate money to restart that, but it's there, it's set up. It is almost totally wired and could be started and tested as soon as they get their budgetary process in order, and the people, the are on staff. I mean, they're there, everything's waiting, just waiting for the contract to be signed to get it
Yeah,
rerun.
we learned at the last customs meeting that coming through Colombia, everything was gonna go through an X-ray.
And I think that's probably true. I don't know exactly operationally how CBP's handling their various different traffic, but as far as I know, most of the empties, if not all the empties, are still going through Columbia. I don't think any of them have been allowed through, other than maybe CT Pat Fast empties. And I don't know if they've been allowed to go through yet.
They are.
At our
I believe they
fast
are.
lane.
Yeah, they are. They have been doing that, so.
Okay, excellent, excellent. That's
But-
one of the other things I wanted to find out. I don't know that information.
Just to add, may I ask another question? Actually, I'm gonna ask for Carlos, because he's on, but he's in Spanish. Go ahead. Dr. Juan.
Okay, I'm sorry for my English. Can I speak in Spanish?
Sure, we'll translate it.
Okay, I have a VIP translator. He's Joe González. Ok, las casetas, lo que son los módulos están funcionando muy bien, pero ahorita hay un problema porque por los nuevos módulos se van los fast lane cargados y los fast lane vacíos se están yendo por los módulos fast anteriores y allí ha habido problema. Ese problema hace que se congestione la línea del fast y los cargados ya no pueden usar las nuevas casetas. Creemos que es la curva de implementación, eso debe de mejorar, pero ahorita tenemos ese problema.
You understand that? Or-
I think so that they're using both the existing fast lanes that were there prior, and they're using the new fast lanes also simultaneously, is that?
Yes, the problem is with the
Fast lanes
exist.
are using the empties to go through there, and that's causing a
Okay.
bit of a problem as they go down that curve. The loaded trailers can't use the fast lanes.
Okay, and that's an operational issue that CBP has determined, and hopefully that something will change over time. The last I heard was they were still just going through the process and trying to increase the traffic through the new fast lane. They didn't want to put it all over there initially, just because they wanted to make sure all their systems worked properly, that we're all integrated back to the main computer.
And just for the record, for Mr. Wilkie, you're only involved in the construction phase and development phase, not operational, right?
Absolutely,
Correct?
that is
Okay, so
correct.
I think, any operational questions that we have, or we can always jot it down, then go back to, CBP meetings or whatnot, or we could definitely deal with them.
That is correct.
Yes.
That is absolutely.
So I don't wanna get off
appreciate-
topic and we
Mr.
get some-
Chairman, I appreciate that, yes.
Él es el constructor, el que está, el contratista que está consultando, no la operación. Pero le pregunté que si también está consultando la operación y no. Pues esto lo vamos con CBP. Thank you.
Welcome, you're welcome.
Please go ahead.
So, anyway, it's moving forward. The trucks are going through. We hope to see increased traffic through there in the coming days as the traffic, they move it over, as CBP gets used to operating through that facility. And my trip tomorrow is just for the facility side, from the construction side, to make sure that our contractor did what he's supposed to do. And there's, like I said, there was a few little odds and ends that we needed to take care of. So I'll be working on that. But as far as we know, it's open, it's operational. And I don't know if it's been announced, but the ribbon cutting ceremony is going to be a week from Friday on the 24th of February. So I will have I'm sure there'll be a big ceremony for that. I understand this is the first major donation acceptance project that has been completed by the corporation between the City of Laredo, GSA, and CBP. And that program started 6 years ago, but we call it DAP. This is one of the major projects. This is probably one of the most complicated projects of those that are going through DAP right now, but we didn't start first. We started later. It took a while to get to this point, but we are the first one to open, and it is one of the largest and most complicated. Plus, it's going to be, as far as I know, on the southern border with Texas. It's the only facility that will have trucks coming directly off an international bridge, straight through the port of entry and straight onto an interstate highway with no curves, once they get all the traffic moved over there for the CT Pat Fast traffic. All the rest go through the rest of the port. So hopefully that will be a major, we've been planning on this as a first step for the expansion project, so that's why I'm mentioning it. It hopefully will increase throughput through the port of entry significantly over time.
Just for clarity, you said this is the first major project for DAP. The DAP contributor was the city, right?
City of Laredo, yes, sir.
What, and the revenues, were that, I mean, going to, the revenues came from the bridge funds? Where did the revenue come from?
80% was funded through TxDOT, and the other 20% was funded through bridge funds.
Thank you.
Mr. Milky, congratulations on the completion of the project in collaboration with the city. The ribbon cutting on the 24th, any idea what time? It'll be in the morning?
9 a.m.
Perfect, in case it gets hot. All right, thank you.
And we don't want to interrupt the traffic as little as possible, so.
Perfect.
We're gonna do it early, and we're working on the invitation. As soon as it's finalized, I'll definitely share it with you all, but save the date. Ribbon cutting ceremony for the fast lane will be Friday, February 24th at 9 a.m.
So it's been a long time coming, but it is a major step forward for throughput at the World Trade Bridge. And now I'm going to talk about another project that's also near and dear to my heart, and that is the World Trade Bridge Expansion Project, which is, we think, the next logical step to increasing throughput and responding to what the trade is giving us today. I mean, the trade has been increasing even through COVID. We had a downturn for a very short period, but now it's coming up. I think numbers were up again this last year in the 8% range, and we've only been predicting 3 to 5% increase. So the numbers are coming back up very fast and very, very quickly. So let me see if I can make this work. There we go. Okay. Some of this you may have seen many times before, some of it you might not have seen. But what I wanted to show the committee is this is pretty much typical of what we're showing to the public, what we're showing to other agencies that we deal with, what we show to our stakeholders, CBP, GSA. We met last week with TxDOT in Austin. We presented them with very much this presentation here. So just so that you all see the same thing, and I'll elaborate as I can, and I'm open to any questions that you may have. So this is just World Trade Bridge today. You've seen all this, I'm sure, if you've been out the port. You've seen the trucks in both directions stacked up on the bridge. That's the 15 lanes of the current port down on the bottom right. Obviously, the need and purpose for the bridge expansion is World Trade Bridge is #1 commercial crossing on the U.S.-Mexico border. Trade is growing rapidly, and it's growing at a faster rate than even TxDOT or any other of the professionals had predicted 2 or 3 years ago. There have been major infrastructure investments by the private sector through that whole region of the Mines Road. That has grown dramatically over the last 10 years. There has been significant local, state, and federal investments in transportation infrastructure in that same area. And I'll show you some pictures in a minute. And the whole intent of this is to reduce the wait times and increase the system throughput so that if we get more trucks through World Trade, we get more trucks into Laredo and or into Nuevo Laredo and or beyond. So we have 8,000 trucks a day one way now. We think we can increase the throughput well over 10,000 per day one way. And the fast lane was just a starting point. These are, I'm going to show you a few projects that have been completed over the last 10 years. You may have seen them, you may not have seen them. Some of them don't really stand out. Of course, you've seen the primary expansions back in 2011. That was a $5.4 million investment. 7 primary lanes were added, 2 secondary lanes were added, 1 new exit lane, and it reduced the wait times in half at that time. This is back in 2011. So this is another preparation for increasing the growth and the processing throughput. One thing I want to point out is on the right-hand side, these are the fast lanes over to the far right. They're going to be moving to the middle. So that will open up space in the normal processing sequence for those other lanes that are be moved over that are fast today. So we move over 25% of the traffic going through the port today into the fast that's already CDPAT certified. That opens up 25% more capacity in the existing lanes.
So that moving that may alleviate also what Mr. Fernando was saying, that it won't get down the road. They'll be on the far end, coming in on that curve. That's
They will, and I'm going to talk about that again, because when all this got started, back in 2011, We had 5 exit lanes coming out of the port of entry that went to one lane only on I-35 or on I-69W, Loop 20. Only one. Everything was channeled down to one. Now we have 3 lanes. So we've tripled the capacity of the output, thinking that one lane would be one lane nearest the barrier in the center, coming right out of the fast lane would be generally dedicated to fast traffic. The other 2 lanes were coming out of now 6 exit booths will be coming and entering exiting the port of entry and entering the Mines Road area. So what we had was one back even in a year ago, we only had 1 exit lane. Now we have 3. So we've increased the output capacity. And immediately after we turn, that's the other thing that when you think about it, you say, well, you've got 5 lanes going into 2 lanes. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But those 5 lanes, they have to come to a complete stop. They're not traveling down the road at 60 miles an hour. They come to a complete stop at the exit booth of CBP. So they're stopping and then they're starting again. So if you've ever gone out there and watched, they do come together pretty well. Those truck drivers, they do it every day, all day long. So they actually feed together quite well. So we've improved the throughput because we now have 3 lanes. And that's just one thing I want to point out because I hear that often. You got 5 lanes going into 1 lane or 2 lanes. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, the trucks stop. They come from a complete stop right there. They make that right-hand turn. Yes, it is a sharp right-hand turn, but they make that right-hand turn. They come together, and they're doing it while they're accelerating. So by the time they get to Mines Road, if they stay on I-69W, they're traveling at a pretty good rate. So they're traveling at a much better rate than they were when they exited. So also in 2012, the city invested $2 million to include and add a climate-controlled processing area on the ag side of the existing dock. And there's 6 bays available for inspection here. It's climate-controlled. It's not frozen. So it's for agricultural products, fruit and vegetables that are not frozen.
Unfortunately, only 3 trucks fit in there.
Well,
That's a different story.
that's another story. In advance of hopefully accepting hazmat cargo at World Trade Bridge, the city invested $1 million and basically Mexico invested the same amount back in 2008. We capture all the water on the existing bridge, all the water. And it's going into this, what you see there is a big holding vault. And that's a sand filter also. So all the water comes off the bridge, rainwater, whatever. It goes through the sand filter. And the intent is if you do have a spill, whether it's diesel, whether it's other chemicals or whatever that may happen on the bridge, it will be captured. This tank is big enough to hold one tanker, one transport, so that you can capture that off the bridge. You can actually wash the bridge in here, and this will capture it. When that event has occurred, you shut valves off, go in and clean the sand, replace the sand, but that's an occurrence that has not occurred. And to my knowledge, even at Columbia, since it's been going, they've never had a major hazmat spill. So this is done, but it's done because it needs to be done in case, because we're upstream of the city's water intake.
What's the capacity, you said?
I'm sorry?
What's the capacity?
Is it 8,000? I believe this is 12,000 gallons, I believe, total. So we take out a little bit at the bottom where the sand filter is, so around 10,000 gallons of liquid capacity on top. A little bit more because we want to make sure we had capacity to wash it for fire department to wash off the pavement. Go ahead, yes, sir.
Just for clarity, you're saying that 2008, we have a valid, functional hazmat containment facility at World Trade Bridge, but it's unauthorized to use, right?
That's correct. The presidential permit, I believe, has not been amended yet to allow hazardous materials other than the very lowest levels to come through the port.
I think the problem is in Nuevo Laredo, which
Yes,
is
I
not
was gonna-
approved. It's not on this side.
CBP doesn't allow it as well here.
The presidential permit has been amended, but the diplomatic notes have not been exchanged to allow the crossing of the hazardous material. That's what we're waiting on. And I know it's being discussed with the new governor of Tamaulipas, so that he can continue looking into completing that process.
I know during this last 14 years, there's been several announcements in the newspaper, but it has not been validated that it's authorized to cross. But I know that this is something we've been working on personally, and I'm just hoping that, we can get together and make it happen, because, I mean, what do you say, $2,000 investment? Or
$1 million.
$1,000 investment in 2008, which is, what's that, taking into consideration right now, it's probably about $3 million. That's not in use, that we're capable of using. And this is a better qualified hazmat containment than all the southern United States, because they made us go through different requirements on
Right.
this.
I mean, the good thing is that we have it available should there be a spillage. I mean, we're also protecting the Rio Grande River, should
But there's no
there be.
hazmat authorized. so
But,
it can be-
you still have diesel that could leak, I mean,
From a drinking water standpoint, there could be other things that would come off the
But
trucks.
you know what, is not even CBP the one that is not permitting that?
No.
CBP
No.
does permit it?
no.
CBP is not permitted right now, so if they claim, then even,
Because
maybe
it's
they don't
very
have the right.
confusing all the time. I
It
mean,
is
nobody
not-
knows where's the problem or where it's the.
Yeah, it is not permitted by CBP because we don't have the presidential permit to
We,
do it.
we
do.
have
We
the
do the
president,
pr-
we
we do
have
have
the
I mean, the
presidential permit
exchange
amendment,
amendment.
but,
Yeah.
I believe that the Nuevo Laredo still needs to fulfill some requirements in order for the diplomatic notes to be
And do-
exchanged.
That's the only
So,
thing that
we're
is.
working on getting this new administration working on it so that
important.
the diplomatic notes can be exchanged.
Our side of the commitment has been met, it's the other side that has not.
And do we know what those requirements are? What is needed on the Mexican side?
I'll show you a picture. The next one.
We are very involved in it, but they.
Go to that one.
Okay.
Back to the refrigerator inspection facilities, also to let you know that the city is also partnering with Garros, and they have a third facility because the original ones, we outgrew them. So they have a third facility and it's already in operation. So we continue to promote the perishables and the use of the facilities.
Is it operational?
Yes.
I think there's a question, Mr.
No, pues solamente aclarar que lo que falta es la acción del gobierno mexicano para poder tener el permiso o el amendment de ese que dice.
Mr. Sid va a decirnos que necesitamos el lado mexicano para trabajar en el.
Perfecto.
And just to comment on that, on last visit from the governor, he was very interested on this project. So he's asking on what exactly is needed on the Mexican part to move forward. So-
This facility, I don't know if it came up for you guys.
Yes.
Okay. This is, I call it an on-site containment facility. This is situated right in the middle of the port of entry. And this was almost a $2 million investment that the city made after we retrofitted the bridge to capture it. This is the piece of the puzzle on the Mexican side that I understand has not been constructed thus far. And this is the piece of the pie that is keeping the Mexican side from agreeing to a exchange of diplomatic notes that would allow the passage of hazardous material. That's my understanding. I know that this issue was discussed with the governor when he was here just a couple of weeks ago, and it's back on the burner for the city of Laredo. I'm sure we're going to be pushing it as part of the expansion because the city of Laredo, as the sponsor for the expansion project, has to deal with the concessionaire on the Mexican side, which is owned by the state of Tamaulipas. So we will be dealing directly with the state of Tamaulipas for the expansion of the bridge. And this is a very small component that we hope that the governor will see as a piece of the pie that they can do fairly quickly in the coming time period that would allow the crossing of hazardous material. But this is just a capture point. If there is a leaking fuel tank or if there's a leaking tanker, there's access points from the bridge and from anywhere in the port of entry where CBP can place the tanker in here. And this also is sized, it has 2 bays, and it's sized, I believe, for 6,000 gallons each. So we can back a truck in there, back a trailer, and it can be capturing any leakage while that's being developed, while the process for capturing and recovery of that is being developed and implemented. I don't believe this exists on the Mexican side, which I think is the piece of the pie that's missing.
Mr. Melky, back then when they were approving the US side, they had mentioned that the state of Tamaulipas had done 2 studies that failed in the US. I guess the US is the one that reviews the studies, and apparently they failed. But that's what Congressman Cuellar's office told us back then. We had no idea about this facility.
I have no idea about the studies. I was not a party to them. And
Who approves it on this side? The State Department?
it has to be, the presidential permit, I believe, has been amended. So the amendment is on paper, and so that is already done. But as typical, anything that happens cross-border, when you do something, a change that you want to change that goes across the border, changes the piercing of the border, as they call it, they exchange diplomatic notes between the U.S. government and the Mexican government, and that goes through the Department of State and the SRE on the Mexican side.
So if it's a study or facility or whatever, it's the State Department that approves it?
They would say yes, and they've already given approval because the presidential permit has been amended, so, but the diplomatic notes have been exchanged. So basically, Mexico's saying we're not ready to allow.
To exchange, to exchange.
It's so, yeah, and that, hopefully we'll get into that as we develop the expansion project, so.
Just to add as well, I know back in 2005, we started initial discussions to allow certain types of hazmats. Right now, when we're having our discussions, you're talking about an extreme diesel leaks or whatever, you know, to take into consideration. But we're looking at, and just to help facilitate certain items like flavoring for beverages, there's a corrosive project to that. There's also looking at what's that polyurethane, where that's a flammable content. I mean, they're hazardous only because DOT regulates them, but other than that, I mean, they're minimal hazard the way we see it. We're just hoping that, you know, instead of using those extreme gasoline or explosives or whatever you guys are using terminology, they can go out there and say, hey, we're looking for the minimum criteria initially to see how we can move forward with that. Just observation.
No, that's absolutely correct. There's many products that are brought across the border these days that are considered hazardous and they're tracked as hazardous, but we would not, as normal folks on the ground, we don't necessarily consider them hazardous, but they are classified as such.
Yeah, the presidential permit just doesn't allow class 1 or 2, I think.
Explosives.
Is it explosives?
Class 1 is explosive, 2 is gases.
Yeah, those 2, I think they're,
It's compressed gas.
they mentioned
too,
there
right?
that.
Yeah. Class 1, all of class 1 are explosive and the 2 are compressed gas.
So, but other stuff, as far as president's permit is concerned,
Those are flammable liquids.
And they would be allowed,
Could be.
Mexico gets it,
could be allowed eventually when we get.
even with the Mexican approval, the 1 and 2 ones and cross, the other one should be.
Explosives are.
For the benefit of the new committee members, I'll send you the email that I sent the other committee members with the actual document through the U.S. Federal Register that indicates, I mean, it can be, it has to be non-radioactive, non-explosive, non-corrosive, but I'll share that information with you tomorrow when I get to the office. I'll email that information to you also that for the benefit of the new members, so you can see.
All of us, not just the new
I'll send
members?
it to everybody, yes,
Okay, thank you.
definitely, yes.
And I guess just for clarity's group as well, whenever there's discussions, to make sure that we promote it in the manner where it's the less hazmat, because it seems like they go up and they speak up on, you know, the most dangerous product, and that's not the case, and we know we can expedite.
No, those will continue to be processed through Colombia. It's the non-radioactive, non-explosive, that, the less riskier materials that will be allowed through World Trade. But I'll send it to you, and it indicates the section of the CFR where you can go in and do more additional research.
Perfect. Thank you.
Recent enhancements, and I've already talked about this. Obviously, this is the Fast Lane project, and this is a drone shot from mid-January. The one on the left is looking from the I-69W perspective at the International Bridge, and you can see, I don't think my, oh, there it does, yeah. This is the fast lanes. These are the 4 fast lanes right there. They come right off the bridge, These are the exit lanes, and they go right down to I-69W. On the other side, this is looking from the International Bridge toward I-69W, and you can see the 4 lanes here, and you can see the exit roadway down there that goes directly to I-69W and joins at the exit facility for the rest of the port.
What's the lane on the left, is that for cars or for vehicles, for maintenance vehicles or whatnot?
The one right here,
Oh, no,
No,
they're
the
just
the far left.
on the left picture?
oh, this one?
Left.
Oh, left picture?
Left lane, the furthest to the left, that one right there?
This one right here?
Yes. That's the
Okay, as
support.
I mentioned, this is an area, right here is the Z portal, which is a non-invasive inspection technology process. That's only good for empties because it's a low energy device. CBP can bring one of their mobile VACAs, which is a high energy device, into this area, and they can line up trucks and check 3 to 4 trucks over here if they want to. If they find an anomaly, this is the pathway. They take it into the back of the existing POE. It goes right by. This is also the pathway for any hazardous material to get back because the hazmat on site is right over here. So that's what this lane is for, is just any secondary inspections can be taken out of the flow and put over here and can be checked over here. If by chance, which doesn't happen very often, but Federal Motor Carriers wants to come out and check the trucks mechanically, they can do that over here as well, and it can take those trucks out of the normal flow.
I have a question. We have more space in the future for more booths?
Yes, sir. I didn't bring a I don't think I don't have a blow up, but there's, yeah, you see there's a little building right there, which is, you can see it better on this side. That little building right there, that is a combination restroom and IT fiber hub.
Okay.
There is room right there between those two for 2 more lanes.
2 more?
2 more. So we've designed it for a capacity of 6 total.
This picture here is for the sake of this group here, right? Because it seems like the first picture had a lot more traffic.
This was probably very early in the morning, and it was on a morning when the weather was good, and I don't think that they'd opened, I don't know, they'd opened up the toll, so this is probably about 9 o'clock in the
Entre este y
morning.
este.
It's not around noon. Or at 4, yeah. They wouldn't let us fly the drone during the construction period except early in the morning just because of that, for they didn't want all the traffic around us in case we happen to have loose control of our drone.
Okay, well, perfect, thank you.
And the other thing that I've already talked about is now we have from the port of entry down here all the way to I-35 on I-69W Loop 20, there are 3 lanes, 3 full operational lanes, where there only used to be 1 coming across this bridge. So we've tripled the capacity, and so once the trucks come out of the exit lanes that exist right here and merge with the fast lane, we have 3 full lanes that can go from 0 to whatever highway speed will allow, all the way and across now, because now the direct connectors across I-35 exist as well, so they can go to the other side of I-35 as well. Problem that TxDOT's dealing with is Mines Road and right in here now. So, plus there's other things going on, other enhancements in the works. The direct connectors, these are TxDOT projects. There are 3 completed, 3 under construction right now, and 2 awaiting funding. These 6, though, will pretty much carry most of the traffic in the direction of flow that's typical today. And then, of course, I'm sure you're very familiar with the Mines Road intersection. TxDOT's analyzing this intersection. This is I-69W here over Mines Road. They're trying to figure out a way to make that intersection work faster. And then the Ruthinger Parkway and the Vallecillo Road, those both will be reliever routes for I-69W to take traffic beyond onto I-35 and get them out of Laredo. So. And then, of course, yes. They're wrong. Yes. Well, I think didn't TxDOT work out a deal with the city?
That was for maintenance only. No, it was for maintenance.
The exchange of the roads, Clark and San
No,
Bernardino.
when was it, when Killam also gave in land this one out for that project?
That was Vice-Cio.
So that's for Vice only. I thought it was part of the whole thing.
Yeah, these are old values. These are very old values that we got from TxDOT like 2 years ago. So they're very old.
So now it's the other way around. Vice-Cio's funded and Clark's not.
There's a gap fund now.
Okay. And then, obviously, the next step, everybody's trying to get the traffic out of the World Trade Bridge, get Mines Road more functional than it is, get the cross traffic between Mines Road and I-35 improved. So the next logical step is expanding World Trade Bridge. This is a plan view that you've probably seen. What we're proposing is to take the traffic that's coming northbound, all the northbound traffic will be put onto a new 8-lane bridge, except for fast traffic. Fast traffic will remain on these two southern or easternmost lanes, and they'll continue to go straight up through the fast project. What this does is it takes out this this reverse curve. This road will remain for an internal access road, but right now, as traffic comes off of the bridge, they basically get down to about 3 lanes, where there's 4 lanes of paving there, but they make the lanes a little wider. We'll have a full 8 lanes coming across when we finish this bridge, that empty into 15 primary lanes in this area. And we'll be working with CBP to make sure that if we need to move it a little bit here or there, we'll take that into account. If they want to add any other non-invasive inspection technologies in this area, we want to make sure that we have done our bridge so that that can be done without affecting the bridge. They may want to put some sort of overhead sign bridge with some lane delineations. We can do that real quickly as part of our project. And then to also facilitate southbound traffic and increase the capacity coming into the Port of Ventura on the Mexican side, we're proposing to add 2 more lanes upstream or north of the existing bridge, and they will attach to the existing bridge. So the existing bridge will end up being from 8 lanes now, it'll end up being 10 lanes wide, 2 lanes for fast, 6 lanes for southbound traffic. And we'll have another 8 lanes over here directly coming into the non-fast Port of Entry.
So the 5 fast that are gonna move to the center, once the expansion is ready, they're gonna be canceled out?
I'm sorry, that?
The fasts that are right now in that area, that you said that they're gonna move to the center, or right there on the right side?
They're at the center lane right now, and there's 1 center lane dedicated to fast right now.
So that's gonna get canceled, and only fast is gonna be on the existing bridge?
There's only fast going to be on the existing, and they're going to move to the 2 exterior lanes on the right-hand side. So that we'll have, I don't think I included, yeah, it's hard to see, but you can see arrows. There's 6 arrows going this way, and there's 2 arrows coming this way into fast, and there's 8 arrows going that way, all into the existing Port of Entry. We haven't worked out any real details yet, but we did propose this to the previous administration in Tamaulipas, and the current governor was here, and he seemed to be very, very supportive of this project. So it will help both countries. I think the governor was very understanding that this is the largest port of entry, and what helps Texas and Laredo helps Tamaulipas.
Remind us again, where are we as the city of Laredo today with this project? At what step are we, and how many steps are needed to get it done?
Okay, here's where we are today. In March of last year, we created what we call an interagency working group, which originally consisted of the U.S. Department of State, U.S. CBP, U.S. GSA, City of Laredo. We brought TxDOT into the picture, and then our consultant team as well. And we're adding other stakeholders as we go down the process, those being the Corps of Engineers and IBWC. April 29th of last year, we prepared and submitted the presidential permit application to the U.S. State Department, as was defined in the rules at the time. In July 2022, the project was approved at the federal level for $1 million of funding to go to the construction of this project. Why was that important? The rules that existed, the rules that are in place today specify that you can submit your presidential permit application, but you have to go do all the other permitting processes. They don't say who is the lead federal agency to go over your environmental clearance process. We talked to the Federal Highway Administration, FHWA. They volunteered to be that agency that takes the lead for the NEPA clearance and also other things. But in order for them to be able to step forward and take their role, there had to be federal money associated with this project that enabled them to be a part of the project. If there's no federal money involved, they cannot step in and do what we'd ask them to do. In the past, in the distant past, most of these bridges were funded either through revenue bonds or through other sources that did not include federal transportation money. And also there were other rules in place before for the processing of the presidential permit. So we're kind of in new ground. There has been some precedent set, but Federal Highways has stepped forward and agreed to do this for this project. And so that's the reason that we asked the MPO for $1 million of funding, that it was approved. And this is the date when, in this month last year, when it passed and it was approved at the federal level in the Texas statewide transportation improvement program. July 26th, we did have a pre-scoping meeting for NEPA clearance. We knew we need to go forward and do the environmental clearance right up front. We knew that. We had a pre-scoping meeting because we didn't have all the paperwork in order. So at that time, we actually found out there's an endangered species living in the river underneath the bridge and downstream. There's a mussel that's considered by U.S. Fish and Wildlife that's endangered. So we've written that into our plan of action for the environmental clearance. On August 29th of last year, the city of Laredo received a letter from the Department of State, which indicated that they will not, the president, the White House, indicated that they will not process the presidential permit application until the NEPA clearance process has been completed. And that's somewhat of a reversal of the procedures that had been followed prior in the previous administration.
If I could interrupt for a second. This morning's breakfast with the mayor at the special Congressman Henry Cuellar, and the private sector had some very directed comments towards Congressman Cuellar, asking him, who do we got to meet with in D.C. to challenge that stance? And we don't want to wait a year and a half for environmental clearance. And he promised to find out, or try to find out, is it the White House? Is it the Department of State? We want a name. We want to meet with somebody. We're going to D.C. in 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks, and we want to set that up.
Can I?
Yes, sir.
I guess the question is between this bridge and the railroad bridge. Why did they do it in 4 months? That's really the big question.
The railroad bridge received their presidential permit under the previous administration.
It was the administration, that's.
And for instance, also up downstream from us, the FAR Bridge, they're doing the same thing. They're doubling their bridge. We received that permit in 3 months. Our presidential permit was granted in 3 months. We're now doing the NEPA clearance. We haven't done the construction yet. We're still doing the NEPA clearance because we have to do that by law.
You have the presidential permit authorized.
But we have a presidential permit which guarantees the bridge sponsor the fact that you have a permit to do this. Now you go spend the larger money and spend the larger time.
So the problem is the administration. The previous administration was more proactive about getting things done, and this administration is taking its time to do it. It's completely goes against the other one. So ultimately, it's the current administration in Washington, D.C.
They're using the same executive order, but they're using a clause that says the president may request additional information prior to processing the presidential permit. That is the clause that this administration is using to require us to do the NEPA clearance prior to them doing the presidential permit application. We would love to ask the current administration, the White House, to say, at least review the presidential permit application now. Let's work with us. Let's work out any problems you may have with it now while we're gonna do the NEPA process. There's no question about that. We're moving forward with that.
They given us some sort of a timeline for that?
There's no
I want to know if you know something about that, because they told us several months, you know, like 18 months or so, just to have that cleared and start, you know, moving all the other parts. So do you know anything about that?
I'll give you my best guess in just a minute, based on what we know today. So the next slide, as a matter of fact. In order to actually start the NEPA process, as I mentioned, we had to get the federal money associated with this project, which we did. It has the appropriate paperwork, except for the advanced funding agreement. And I understand that, I know that the city council approved the AFA last Monday at their session, and that has been sent to TxDOT, and we've been told that that will be signed in the next week or so. That is the piece of the pie. That's the agreement between the city of Laredo and the state of Texas, which binds us for this project, for them to work with us, and allows their staff, because there's a memorandum of understanding in place between Federal Highways and TxDOT, where TxDOT does most of their environmental clearance in-house now. They don't have to go to FHWA. So the AFA, we believe now that the city signed it, we're told that it's a done deal, and it's just a matter of the commission signing it. And so we're preparing, and you'll see in the schedule in a minute, we're preparing to start the process next month. And we do have a timeline associated with that. So the AFA was approved by council on Monday. And then it says awaiting TxDOT signature. It was sent today. I just saw an email today where engineering department sent it to TxDOT here at the district level. So the approved motion was signed, and so was the AFA. And that's now fully in TxDOT hands. There's really nothing that we can do other than wait for the commission. I think the commission meeting is next Thursday. So I'm pretty sure they will act by then. Timeline. We believe the AFA will be signed, which that triggers the environmental clearance process. We're right now believing it's 24 months, because now, I mean, we've compressed it. We were ready to do it, and we thought in 18 months. And that's pushing on it. If you've ever gone through an environmental clearance process, if you're just adding, I don't know how to describe it. We had to do one for the hazmat facility, well, for the fast lane. We did an environmental clearance process for the fast lane, and that took 6 months. Just because there's paperwork, there's studies that have to be done, that have to be documented, that are current. So if you think about it, we built that inside of an existing port of entry that had been operating since 1998. We still had to spend 6 months to get it cleared environmentally so we could spend the construction money. This is a new project. It's adjacent to an existing port of entry. It's existing international bridge, but it is downstream, and it does pierce the border another time. So it will require an environmental assessment, whereas the other project, actually, we did can't remember the name of the lesser document, the shorter document, but we're going to have to do an EA at a minimum. We think we can get by with that. When I say get by, that's the minimum level of clearance that we can do to satisfy all of the agencies and satisfy all the requirements of the National Environmental Policy Act, which is, we call it NEPA, and there are rules in there about what we have to do. So don't ask me how many modules there are in that clearance process. There are 20, I believe, different areas of study. When we increased one because now we have we have an endangered species to deal with. So our plan is to try to get the process cleared in 24 months from start to finish. Yes, sir.
And, who found this mussel, and why were they digging there to find it in the first place if we can't do the EPA, the NEPA study without the funding? I mean,
The mussel has nothing to do with that, with the NEPA study. It just found it added to the time potentially that it'll take us to clear the project.
what I understand correctly is you gotta move the clam somewhere, right? The mussels?
That's what we understand, yes, sir.
Has anybody gone in to confirm they're actually there and it's not somebody just throwing a
That's the
roadblock?
first, that's part of the first step that we'll have to do as part of our NEPA clearance relative to this endangered species, is we will have to hire another consultant to go take divers down there and do a mussel study to find out, are they
So
there?
nobody knows if somebody just claimed there was a mussel there and we just accepted it as fact?
I'm told that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife has determined that they exist in the Rio Grande at multiple locations from, I believe, Del Rio all the way down beyond Laredo. And I'm told they have been located at the city of Laredo water intake for their water system. That's what I'm told. Please don't quote me on that because I don't know that.
So that's what the environmental studies are gonna actually
That's
state.
part of it. That's just one little piece of it. Just one little.
They're gonna confirm if the mussels do exist and.
Yes,
and
as
we'll
far
have
as
to
the
do whatever.
endangered species, we'll have to perform a mussel study, which means we'll have to send a diver down and they'll have to study half of the river, 150, 200 feet up and downstream. And if there are no mussels found in that area, then we finalize the report, we add it to all the rest of the modules for the environmental clearance, and we go on our way. If mussels are found, then we schedule a mussel relocation, and this is allowed, where we send a diver, and we don't want to do this until right before we're done with our NEPA clearance, because there's also rules about how long you can, after you do the relocation, that you have to build the project before the mussels come back, and you have to do it again. So we'll have to time the relocation part of the project to where we do it right at the very end. We go, hopefully we won't have any, but supposing we do, hire another diver, set of divers, go down there and get the mussels out, take them to a place where they exist, where they're known to exist, and redeposit them there.
So nobody's really seen the report that there's mussels under the bridge, if somebody said that they aren't.
I'm told there is report, I'm told there's documentation that they're there in the river, and they're both
I
upstream and
understand that.
downstream of us.
But nobody has seen or said.
I haven't gone in the river, none of us have sent a diver in there to see.
The documentation is that they exist in the river, there's no documentation that they're said that they're at the bridge.
Specifically, no.
Okay.
But because they're upstream in the river and downstream in the river, and they typically will move with the flow of the river, it's assumed that they potentially will exist in this area, and whether we want to build the bridge. So that's the purpose of doing the mussel study, the first piece, and finding out are they there.
The environmental clearance, having mussels or not, it's still 24 months.
Still have, we would probably could do it in 20 months if we didn't have
Okay.
the mussel study. It's
So
still a long
mussel is-
process.
is-
It's still
the
a long
issue is 4
process.
months.
I'm sorry?
The issue mussel will only.
We're estimating that that's all that's going to extend it for us.
Okay.
But here's a question regarding that. The NEPA clearance has to be done 18, 20, 24 months, whatever it takes, right? But from what I heard this morning and in other places, what we can look for is to get the presidential authorization to go forward in all the other stuff that we have to do, instead of waiting all for the NEPA clearance to start doing all the other stuff.
We're not, the city of Laredo is not waiting. What's not shown in here is what we call the engineering phase. The engineering phase always takes less time than the environmental clearance. So we'll be doing, the next month also, in addition to starting the environmental clearance, we have a team on our team, an engineering firm on our team that's gonna go out there and survey the river and get cross-sections. We need to get 5 cross-sections total. And then we need to survey the alignment as the bridge goes across the river for our purposes of design. We're gonna start the preliminary design in 2 months. And we're gonna start siting our interior vents, and you saw a lot of it's already been sketched in. We're gonna confirm or deny, we're gonna create a conceptual set of plans as soon as we can. Start the other permitting process, which is IBWC conceptual clearance and their flood study. We have to do a flood study that shows that this bridge will not cause any rise or fall of the water level. That's all gonna be going on simultaneously.
Okay, so you don't have
We'd
to
already
wait.
planned for that anyway. The real difference is the city of Laredo is spending the money that they were gonna spend anyway without the guarantee that the president will approve the permit now. That's the big thing. And when we're done with the environmental clearance and we have our design 100% ready to go, we still can't go to bids because we have to wait for the presidential permit. So that's where time is added at the end, that we don't know how long the White House at that time, whoever's in the White House at that time, how long they're going to take to review the report that we submitted last April. That's what we were hoping to get them to change, is at least do simultaneous review of that presidential permit application so that the city of Laredo has some sort of guarantee that you're not spending all this money and then you got to stop anyway and go back and do these other things that now they're saying you have to do that we could have found out last year.
So what should we be asking over there in Washington if we can?
Asking the White House to go ahead and process and review the presidential permit application simultaneously with the other permitting activities that are ongoing that the city is committing to. They committed to it publicly to do. That's, in my opinion, and I'm not an engineer, I'm not a politician, so that would be my opinion. Ask them to go ahead and do what their previous administration did, which is review the presidential permit when it's submitted.
I guess for the DC trip, once the agenda's out, let's hope the item is on the agenda for the city.
Yeah, that's something I don't have any control over, but.
No, I agree.
The answer to the question, in my opinion, and again, I'm not an expert in all the politics and everything, but years ago, the process was different in that the Department of State was granted the power by the White House to review presidential permit applications, to review the environmental clearance process, to be the administrator, and they actually then issued the FONSI and they would issue the presidential permit. In 2019, I believe in February, a new executive order was written by the previous president that said in his attempt to streamline the federal process, where before you had to do exactly what we're doing. You did all the work. You didn't turn in the presidential permit till you were ready to have the project environmentally cleared. Then you turned in the presidential permit document and the NEPA clearance document. It was then, only then was it checked and reviewed by federal agencies. And that process took another 2 years oftentimes, or more. I did a project in El Paso. We did the presidential permit 4 months. It took us 2 years to do the NEPA clearance, but it wasn't cleared because we then submitted it to the State Department. And then we went through another 2 years of back and forth before we were granted a FONSI and the presidential permit. So it's a matter of time, it's a matter of when you spend your money, it's a matter of guaranteeing that when you spend the big bucks, which is the design and the NEPA clearance and all that, that you have a permit potentially in your hand. That's the reason they changed the procedure, was to try to streamline it. So my recommendation would be if you can go to the White House, which is a big house. There's a lot of people that work there. And I think it's the Council on Environmental Quality. I think they're probably the direct advisors to the president in matters such as this. I'm not sure, but I think that's, and maybe even just direct advisors to the president, but that would be the group that I think you should go to. The State Department, they're out of the picture. With the new executive order, that authority was taken from them. They're now the administrator. They're the gatherer and the distributor of information. So we try to tell everybody, don't pick on the State Department. You know, they're doing what they've been told to do. And they've been told not to grant presidential permits at this point in time until they are received their environmental clearance.
Could you repeat council for what?
Council for Environmental Quality. CEQ, I believe, is the initials they go by.
Just a question, I know we've been harping on this, I know we gotta move forward, but taking into consideration there could be a possible new administration in 24.
Was there a proposal to go out and if there was a change to go to see if we can expedite it a little quicker? Because we're looking at 5 years right now to get this thing completed, if we follow the timeline and we comply with all the requirements. Is that a possibility?
If things fall, and let me go through the rest of the timeline, and I can show you where I think we can save time if things change. Because basically, we're trying to do everything we have to do anyway. To answer the question, we're starting the NEPA clearance, we're starting the conceptual design, we'll follow up with the full, what we call plan specifications and estimate design as we follow through. We'll be doing cost estimates every stage of the way while the environmental clearance process is ongoing. And that's always the critical path. So we can do the design quickly. We can communicate with our Mexican, that's the other thing that the governor, we've asked, I'm getting off, but the governor of Mexico, we've urged him to hire an engineering company to help guide them, help guide the concession through this process, because there's another process in Mexico. It's different, and they've got to get permission as well. And we want to make sure the bridge design is the same on both sides and that we all fit together, and so we're hoping that the governor will hire at least a firm that's experienced and we'll work together. But everything is going to go simultaneously. When I do develop a schedule next month, you'll see, I'll present it to you and you'll see where everything's going on. It's going to be this long, and the red line is going to be environmental clearance and the construction. Okay, so we're anticipating 2 years for environmental clearance process, and that's from start in March of this year through the issuance of a FONSI, which is the document that says the project is cleared, ready to go from here on. And that's assuming, and FHWA always says, assume an EA, but if we find something along the way, if we find some more endangered species or something else, which we don't think we're going to find, because we're in an area that's been disturbed for many, many years, it may take longer. But we think 2 years is doable. We think we can convince the other sponsors. This is actually compressing it on our other sponsors, on TxDOT, who's doing the reviewing, on FHWA, who's doing the reviewing. We've compressed it as much as we feel comfortable so that they won't object, because all the stuff we develop, they have to review and decide, yeah, you're ready to go. You put that one down. Just keep adding the modules together. We're hoping that in July 2025, which is a month after, or actually between July and September, a month after, if everything stays the same, after we submit our FONSI to the State Department and they submit it to the White House, we've shown July, September, July, August, September, 3 months for the president and his staff to review the presidential permit. Tell us what we need to change, if anything, get any more information to them if we have to, and give us the presidential permit. There's no timeline. The president has not set a time on himself. So there's no guarantee that that's only 3 months. As I mentioned on another project we just finished year before last, we got it in 3 months, but that was with a different administration who looked at the environmental clearance issues differently. Okay, once we get the FONSI, then the FONSI and the presidential permit allow us, the FONSI primarily allows us to get the Coast Guard official permit, the IBWC permits, and an Army Corps of Engineers permits. Those have to be done. Those are very less time consuming. I did mention that we're going to bring the Coast Guard into our interagency working group. That's how they want to do it. Their new process is very streamlined. When we get our FONSI, we'll submit our Coast Guard application the next day. They will know. They will have already seen it. They'll already be sure that they're ready. We'll make sure they're ready to give us their permit. They have a 45-day publication window, so they have to go to the public, say, we're going to grant this permit, this bridge permit, and they have to wait 45 days for the public to commit if they want to. So we have that. We have IBWC. We've already talked to them several times. Again, we have a conceptual approval from them. We have the hydraulic study that they have to approve. We have a final design approval that we need from them. And we also need basically a license agreement to cross over the boundary of the Rio Grande. Those have been done. Those haven't changed. We know as I mentioned, we've been talking to IBWC. And when we talk about IBWC, SILA is their Mexican counterpart. So we will try to be working with the Mexican counterpart, hopefully on the Mexican side, working with that agency or that binational agency simultaneously. So we've allocated October, November, and December of 2025 for that permitting period. Again, that's pushing on it. We think we can do it. That's 45 days for Coast Guard to advertise and then send us the permit. Then we go to bids after that. So we're considering a construction period of 1 year, basically, well, a little more than 1 year, because we're actually doing the 2 lanes on the existing bridge. So our thought process there is build the brand new bridge, build the 8 lanes, move all of the northbound traffic to the new bridge. Then we can manipulate the traffic and not affect the traffic that's on the existing bridge, and we can move over a lane or 2 to allow us to cut off the overhang and add those other 2 lanes. So that's why it's longer than a year, because we have 2 big phases that we have to work in. But that will have basically in 1 year, by January of 2027, more or less, we'll have the 8 lanes open. We should be able to do that in 12 to 14 months pretty easily. And then we're just saying 2027, December, we'll have both bridges operational and fully open to traffic on both sides. So that is our current timeline. This line item here, this July 2025 to September 2025, that is the area that has no time limit on it. We're estimating at 3 months. If we get simultaneous review of the presidential permit application while we're doing the NEPA process, that 3 months goes away. We may be able to shorten the NEPA process, but at this point, not having gotten started with it yet, we're trying to be as, not as conservative as possible, but we try to tell you guys that this is what we think we can do. This is probably the best we can do. If we can shorten it a little bit, we will. The NEPA process not only includes the studies we can do in probably a year, but we have to have a public meeting, at least one. And we've got to advertise for that public meeting for 45 days or 30 days in advance. We have to write the public meeting notice. That has to be approved by the feds and by TxDOT. So the public meeting takes about 90 days of time. It's not, we're going through the other stuff at the same time, but it takes 90 days. We have to advertise at the end for the public to ask for a public hearing if they want a public hearing. We present the document in the draft form. Here's what we found. Here's the things that we found. This is just part of the NEPA process. And that takes time. It has to be advertised to the public. And all the preceding things, we don't just write it in the paper the way we want to. All the words we use have to be approved by TxDOT and the Federal Highway Administration. So anyway, very short description, but I did cover the timeline. That's what we think is possible. That 3-month window, hopefully we can get it to go away in the meantime. If nothing else, it can go simultaneously with the NEPA clearance. There's a lot of other details. Again, I didn't talk about the PS&E or the conceptual design. That's engineering. That is always the shortest, easiest thing for us to do. We have control of it other than we're working with our counterpart in Mexico, because we don't just design half a bridge. We design the whole bridge, and they design their whole bridge, and the 2 generally match. They may not be identical, but they'll match.
Go ahead. You have it.
No, just one question. So at this point, I know there's working on the MOU between Laredo or Texas and Tamaulipas. Is that holding up something on your side? No.
No,
Okay.
that's not holding up a thing. The city has already given us, as our consultants, we have under contract the NEPA clearance, the conceptual design, and some surveying that we need to do that. We're going forward with that regardless. What helps is to have the MOU in place with the counterpart, with the state of Tamaulipas and or the concessionaire, and have them have their consultant, their engineer on board, so we can work together. That would be beneficial. That would help us a lot.
That's being worked on and
That, yeah, the next steps, my next slide is what we have for the next steps. The request has gone to the state of Tamaulipas to provide the city of Laredo a letter of support for the project. We've asked the governor, he was verbally asked when he was here. The mayor's followed that up with a letter wherein he indicated the city of Laredo's support for the project and requested a letter. Will be duplicate of one that was done by the previous administration, but we need that because we want to show the White House we have the support of our Mexican sponsor. City of Laredo provided a similar letter to the state of Tamaulipas. We've talked about an MOU. We want to have an MOU in place. That's not a real binding document, but it shows that the two parties are working together. And we did have an MOU in place with the previous administration in Tamaulipas. We would like to do the same thing here with the current administration so that everybody knows that we're working together. And
Just have an update on the
oh, okay. Well, let me. We've asked the governor to designate a binational coordination group. And the U.S. side, it would be bridge director, assistant city manager, myself, and other team members on my engineering team and my consulting team. And that would make up our binational working group. I mentioned we have an interagency working group. That's the U.S. side agencies, but we want to have this binational working group where we sit down, we talk, we make sure, this is the alignment we want. This is where we want it to be. This is how many columns we want, things of that nature. How are you doing on your permitting? Where are you on your environmental clearance? We would meet probably once a month just to keep the lines of communication open. So that's where we are. That's the things we're focusing on right now, not the long range things, but this is the next month. And Yvette said she has an update, so.
Yes, hi. Last week on Monday, council authorized the city manager to move forward with the MOU. It has been drafted and it is, the mayor has the MOU. They're working the logistics to see how they're gonna execute it. So as soon as we know if it's gonna be a ceremony, how it's gonna be executed by both our Mayor Trevino and the governor. But the MOU is drafted and it was approved by council, so we're just waiting on the logistics for the execution of the MOU.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mon.
Can I make a motion to extend the time
Yeah, sure,
from 7:30 to 8, maybe?
sure. And a second,
Second.
all in favor, aye. And then, extend the,
One last question. I guess in my mind, most important one. What is the estimated cost of this?
Going up every day.
I know. And number two, who actually is paying for it? Are we doing half-seas with Mexico or, and to our knowledge, are they on board with X amount of dollars? Or is that still, has that subject been touched with them? And let's just say it's gonna cost $1 and
We've
it's
done
gonna
our
be.
estimate for our half.
Okay.
And it was originally 24, and now we've up, because we've added these other two
Of course.
lanes, we went up to, I don't know. Is it 20, we were less than 24, right? Now we're 24? Okay. We shared that information with them. We say this is what we think our half is gonna cost. And this is pretty much half and half. They have more roadway, but that's cheaper per the square foot than the bridge. So the bridge is gonna be basically halves. And the original bridge was built that way with, there's a center span right over the river. That one was actually constructed by the Mexican contractor, I think, on this project.
And when we say half and half, just for illustration purposes, so whatever the water, the width of the water, half is half, or how does that calculated?
Roughly speaking, yes, the center of the water is the boundary of between the U.S. countries. So you can see this, I don't know.
Yeah, we can see it.
You can see it, okay,
Yeah.
right here, that's what we call an international span. That's where the boundary cuts through there. So the bridge to the left would be the Mexican construction. The bridge to the right would be the U.S. construction for the city of Laredo. And the span that's over the center, typically we do a joint bid, actually. Their contractor bids, our contractor bids, and whoever's the lowest actually does the construction. And then the other party will pay half back.
Oh, wow.
That's just the way it's been done in the past. We'd like to try to continue that. It's most equitable to both parties.
Sounds reasonable.
But yes, that's the way the funding is going to be set up. We believe they should bear their half of the expense, or their portion, it may not be half, but their portion of the expense on their side.
Thank you.
We have been told that, again, this is hearsay, but we've been told that there are plans to increase their capacity in the port and do other things in the port, which is why we're hoping that we can get hazmat put in there too, as they go forward. So this is going to require, doing this is going to require something of a facility right here. They have to expand this canopy or whatever. They have to do roadway in here. Plus, they've got other processing issues they want to deal with. So hopefully the state of Tamaulipas, the concessionaire, will be doing other things in their port that you've already done, fast lane and stuff like that. And this cost will be split at the border.
Mr. Milky, just one easy question. If we had a presidential permit in hand right now, how much would this timing improve?
3 months,
Three
for
months,
sure.
okay.
3 months.
So it's not a year and a half or 2 years?
Well,
just 3 months?
We're only allowing the president 3 months in the future to go back and look at our presidential permit application that was submitted last April. We've only allowed him 3 months to look at it and approve it.
So the long lead time item is the environmental clearance?
I'm sorry?
The 2 years for environmental clearance is 2 years. It has nothing to do with...
We don't believe we can change that. What the benefit of having the presidential permit on hand is you're guaranteed that you have the permission of the federal government to spend this money and get it done.
Thank you.
I think the issue, there's two questions, if I can.
Go ahead. And we want to move on after that.
Question that JD asked about the new president coming in, if it's different from Biden, is that going to change anything? I don't think it does. Hopefully it doesn't. But when I look at it is we had anticipated having the presidential permit in hand, and that was going to give us the city, they wouldn't be able to start doing all this stuff, environmental studies and everything else. But we've been delayed right now 5 months because you didn't have anything that guaranteed that you were going to get funding for it. So you didn't want to go and spend that money in advance. So we've lost 5 months in this process because we didn't get the presidential permit. And that's the way I understand it.
3 to 5 months. We've extended this last year. It's possible we could have cut 3 to 5 months out of the process. If we had been granted a presidential permit in 3 months after we submitted in April, probably would be a little bit farther ahead than we are today, but not a lot. So there was a little bit of time lost. We're only estimating 3 months of time at the end. That could be a year. That could be more. We have no control over that. And we don't have control over who will be, what administration will be in the White House when we get to that point. That is past the 2024 election time, so we have no idea what's going to happen there. One thing I will say is we really want to try, we've tried to make sure we're going to do this in the elected period of the governor of Tamaulipas, because it's very critical that once we get his administration on board, that we get it done, if we can at all possible, get it done in that 6-year window. Because they are your counterpart in Mexico. They have the concession for the bridge, and they control the purse strings. We don't see any major federal opposition on the Mexican side at this point. There's nothing, obviously the federal government wants Bridge 5-4, but this is going to benefit the federal government as well, with a minimal expenditure and almost none by the federal government in Mexico. This is all pretty much concession expenditure by the state.
Mr. Milky, just for your consideration, we had an informal meeting with the Coronel on the Mexican side, with the architects equivalent to GSA and all, and these were the observations. First, if this was a done deal with your design, and we told them that we didn't know if it was the final design. The other thing was that fan where the 2 lanes are going to be constructed, those 2 new lanes. You see that fan or that curve, that U that they have? They were already planning to do something with that, because right now they have an issue with that. So, but it was minimal. And the other thing was the right-of-way on their side. Supposedly it has to be parallel to the other one, so they don't have to do a new permit, their presidential permit. that it had to be a little bit more parallel before it can go to our side.
The green part is what we're envisioning is roadway, is embankment and roadway. So definitely we can adjust that. We can adjust this angle too. What's critical to us is we want to hit the dead center of these lanes right here. That's what's critical to us. This was just done without any consultation on the Mexican side. We just thought it would be better if it's a straight shot. If we need to alter this, we can definitely do that at this point. It's not set in stone.
Yeah,
We have an alignment, we have a profile alignment that we've defined here. It can be moved, it can be changed, but we want to know that pretty quickly. And I know they had a meeting before, and we would love to come and again, meet with them. And we'll be available in the future to try to do that, and we need to.
That was just an observation. Do you have anything else to add?
No, just what you said, I mean, that was only the comment that they told us. I think it's something minimal that they can work on, so, just that when the time comes, we could sit down and work together on that.
And certainly, the presidential permit itself is defining the fact that there's a piercing of the border here. There's another piercing of the border. And we've told them in the permit this was gonna be 8 lanes wide. Whether it's at this angle, you don't tell them what the angle is, or at this angle, or whatever, we don't tell them in the presidential permit. So they'll be permitting 8 lanes of bridge across the river downstream of the existing bridge. If we need to work with our counterparts in Mexico and tilt it a little more, we can definitely do that to make their job easier as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mulkey.
My last question, Mr. Of all the bridges that you've done, how many bridges have you built with Mexico? Just 9, 8? Well, my question is, on the booths, we see that the fast lane can only add like 2 more booths, and that's horizontal. Have you ever seen something vertical? Like,
Yes.
They've
I've seen, there's other places where they have them at 2 different levels. Like one of the officers is up higher and the other officer is down lower, depending on whether it's the Mexican side or the US side. These booths are actually long enough, and there's 2 windows, there's 2 processing windows in every one of these booths on the fast lane. So it's intended that there would be a SOT officer or whatever officer is responsible for permitting traffic to come northbound out of their port to sit in the booths at the fast lane. So we've tried to do that best we could. And there's 2 counters and 2 computer stations, and they talk with Wi-Fi line of sight. So we've tried to make sure that we can have both sets of officers in our fast lane booths simultaneously. And CBP has worked with us on that to try to let that layout work.
Talking about vertical as an overpass.
But to put another, like if you have the booth here, can you add another one back there? And
Oh,
stop
beyond?
here?
We could. There's not a lot of room because we've tried to push it as tight as we can. We were stuck with the, let me see if I can go back here real quick.
Getting into any design.
I mean, because we can't go.
Right, we can't
vertical
fan out anymore.
Yeah, you can't fan out.
And I'll be honest with you, technology has changed so much since we started this project. I'm thinking that technology is gonna overtake us again in 6 more
years.
By the time you get ready to think about these other 2 lanes, I'm thinking technology is already gonna overtake what's out there now, and you're gonna have speeds processing through here so much faster. That's just my thought, because this port was built with technology from the 1990s and 1980s actually, so it's very slow, and they've done their best. CBP's done their best to outfit these booths, but they were based on technology then. We did put an extra long booth here for that purpose. We could put another booth here. What we're finding with fast, it probably would work. With non-fast, it doesn't, because each truck will have a different processing time. So if you get a truck in the front, in that lane that takes longer than the truck in the back, you're delaying both trucks. So that thought, while it's good, oftentimes does not work as planned unless you have even the same type of cargo, even if they have car parts or car radios, and there's 3 or 4 trucks with car radios. Each one of them may take a little bit different time to process.
Unless it's empty.
Unless they're identical trucks.
Empty.
And the drivers are all pre-certified and all the stuff is coming from the same warehouse and going to the same warehouse. Each one takes a little bit different amount of time to process. But technology is already increasing the speed dramatically from when this project was, when we originally built World Trade Bridge.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkie.
Well, thank you very much. Great information. I think the timeline puts us in perspective of where we're at as and for the next 3-4 years. And I'm pretty sure you got some information to take to Washington. Gene, you're going to Washington, right? Yeah, so that'll be definitely probably good. Awesome. Thank you very much. We'll move to item number 2. Discussion with possible action on implementing a tired insufficient fund fee for repeat violators and any other matters in there too. So, Mr. Morrow, we move to 8 o'clock. Yes, sir. Thank you. We do have, everybody has a copy of the reports from January in 2023, November and December from World Trade and Colombia. I'm going to just brief the new members of this project. But basically for the new members, we started noticing last year that there's a many U-turns, insufficient funds, U-turns at the World Trade Bridge. A driver shows up, doesn't have funds, he can't pay and let him through. He has to go out, do a U-turn, and go find for his office to go pay, or he has to get down and pay. But this creates about a couple-minute delay, and it stops the whole traffic. And from the whole, you have to stop the traffic and let that truck do a U-turn and come in. It could be from 2 to 4 or 5 minutes, but it was happening, 500 times a month. That's probably 20 times a day. And in a peak period, we added up that it was causing at least a 2-hour delay every day, stopping the traffic. So we placed every time they have a driver shows up with insufficient funds, they get fined. Besides that, to pay to cross that truck, they have to pay $25 right now? $25.
$25 plus the per axle fee.
Yeah.
As a fine, and then when they cross, they pay the toll.
Exactly. And you can see the breakdown here, everybody can see the breakdown. One account it's not many of us, but one account did it 7 times throughout the month. 3 accounts did it 6 times each. 2 accounts had 5 times. Then 160 accounts only had 1, so we could consider those as an accident or mismanagement. One time they fixed it, but it's still impacting you. We removed the other 56 times that the other repeat offenders are doing it.
An account is a driver's company.
A company.
Do we have data on that 167 account, if they are repetitive every month, even if it's once a month, or we don't have data on that?
I'll have Ken, Richard.
Like, let's
does
say
the-
this company does one
month it does
U-turn
it once.
every month or not?
Yes, I have Ken, Richard, the assistant director. He does the compilation of this data. And with me also is Ms. Lupita Reyes. She is the assistant director in charge of the customer service centers, the ABI program here today.
So yes, for the record, Kent Richard, Assistant Bridge Director on the operations side. As you can see, what I gave you was a breakdown for November, December, and January for World Trade Bridge and also for Columbia Bridge. As you can see, November World Trade Bridge was 336, December 416, and then we went back down to 318. Just looking at January alone was 223 accounts that made up that 318 crossing. What I've been doing on a monthly basis, as you can see, like you were presenting 167 accounts with 1 U-turn. Now you're asking the question is, and yes, we do have some of that information. Ms. Reyes will step up in a moment, and she did a more detailed analysis saying from April of 22 to current time, this account had X, this other one had Y, and she has that information, and she can kind of give you a snapshot of what everybody, who our top players are from April to now, with who has the most. And I can assure you that our front office is contacting these companies and daily, and just, we need deposits, because it's slowing down our industry and it's hurting their pocketbook, And Ms. Limon will also talk about that on another implementation that we have going on that hopefully will resolve this once and for all.
Perfect. Thank you.
I noticed that it seems like in the last three statements that we have here, there's the top five, there's
Multiple repeaters, especially on the one account. Is this all the same accounts or is it different accounts that are
That's what
repeaters?
Ms. Reyes will be able to give you.
Every month, through month, it's different. Right here,
No,
it's
but
just
I'm
one
talking
account.
about just like the one.
One account, no,
yeah.
no, and every month it's different, it could be different. Right here, they're telling you that one account is 7 times.
But it's the same guy for each month.
That's
No, no, no,
the
of course not.
information that,
Ms. Reyes will provide that information for you, and also following up with your recommendation to make it mandatory to have everybody be enrolled in the auto replenish, which is leaving a credit card on file for when they don't have funds in the account. She will give you an update as to where we're at on that recommendation that you all asked us to implement.
Good evening, Lupita Reyes, Assistant Bridge Director for the finance side of it. On the insufficient funds, I have a breakdown. It started in April 2022. And as of then, we have a total of 3,674 transactions of insufficient funds or negative funds. I have a breakdown. The breakdown is, we have 16 accounts that have from 16 to 35 accounts that have been from 20 to 35 repeat offenders. Okay, so those 16 accounts.
16 accounts that offended 20 to 35 times?
16 accounts have from 20 to 35 repeated.
Okay.
Each one. Mhm. And then we have 52 accounts from 10 to 19.
52.
Right? And then from 1 to 9, we have the rest of them, which is 3,606.
How much was the last amount, I'm sorry? The last amount of accounts for 1 to 10?
Well, 1 to 9 is 3,606.
Which I would suggest is the majority of the accounts, right?
Right.
There's 4,500, 4,700 accounts. The issue are the ones that accidentally do it once a month.
Right, correct, yes.
Once a month or once every 3, 4, 5 months?
Right.
Yeah, because it's many accounts, so that's the number.
It's been throughout the 10 months then since we
Yeah.
started.
And we started charging in April? Or when did we
April
start? April when we
2022.
start charging? Okay.
I want to add to that if I can. So when they presented the survey the last meeting, one of the questions that stood out to me was that the drivers were not aware that they didn't have money. And then it came that the drivers are not the ones actually putting the money. So the driver gets there and they don't know that there's money. So then that's when it came out that the, having a credit card on file, we've always done it to where it was optional. And it was a business decision for the business owner. So my recommendation was, let's take away the option and let's make it a requirement. And so then that way, the only reason to charge a fund or a fee would be an insufficient fund fee or not having, the credit card bounces or something versus, having to deal with like another oops situation. Maybe the $25 is not a big punishment for them. And so I don't know, when did the taking away the option get implemented? And have we seen any difference?
The other function that I have is the auto replenish, which is the auto replenish, what it is you put a threshold, let's say $50, and then you put an auto replenish of $100. Every time that your account goes under the 50,000, the auto replenish kicks in. But you need to have an active credit card all the time.
Correct.
Okay.
Legally, can you do that?
Yes. I guess that's what we've been talking about since last year. Now, you check the legal and probably with.
When did it get implemented that the option was taken away? It's only been, have we done that yet?
No.
No. Oh, what we have here on the flyer that they distributed, we have a total of 17,746 open accounts. You ought to replenish, yes. We have 17,746 open accounts. Out of those 17,700, it's composed of 4,769 commercial and 12,977 non-commercial. Out of those 17,700, we have 4,876 accounts that have the auto replenish active.
Correct.
Okay, out of those 4,876, only 1,033 are commercial. The rest of them, the 3,843, they're non-commercial. The way it works and what we're doing right now is the replenish function, it works, we do it 9 times a day. Okay, it performs 9 times a day. On the following day, if it does not go through, it keeps trying and trying and trying and trying to get your money or replenish. On the second day, on the first try, if it doesn't go through, it deactivates the auto replenish. So now staff needs to go back and reactivate all the accounts all over again. So,
But right now, as Ms. Perez was asking, we don't have, it's not mandatory, right?
not yet.
Yes, not yet.
No. But
So-
we-
And whoever you have it, it's voluntary.
Yeah.
Also there's more voluntary, but if one time it didn't go through, so you've been canceling every day some accounts that you
Twice,
spent.
9 times
They probably
out of the-
volunteered to have it, but their credit card from
Right.
2 years ago either expired or whatever, they haven't changed it.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
it automatically takes it away after the second day.
Yes, and what happens, we do, my CSRs, they do advise the customers, whether existing or new, to please activate the auto replenish.
Correct.
What they complain or what they say is that, it's not meant, you can't tell me, or you cannot force me to do it, this is illegal. Why are you charging me the 3%? Because if we do charge the 3% to using the credit card. So we do have little complaints, and it mostly comes from companies that are smaller than the big ones. The big ones, they go in and deposit by check.
Yeah, $500,000,
yes.
$2,000 check, yeah, correct.
So we mostly have a little bit, and then with individuals, with non-commercial. But yeah, we are trying to advise, we haven't made it mandatory. But again, I don't know if we're gonna go through with it. But most probably in March, we will be.
Yeah, but how do you go through with it, and what happens if you don't have it? Like, how much time do you give? And then when that time meets, if I never give you a credit card, you're gonna just cancel my account, or how would it work?
A suspension?
We're encouraging everybody, right, to
What, yeah,
switch into
first
the
step?
program, and we have a lot of customers that deposit regularly, and large amounts, they vary. So we tell them, just put their credit card on file, leave the auto replenish in the event that you're out of town, something happens, and you lose control of your account. It'll cover you, right, depending on the threshold that they indicate, and the amount that they're gonna charge their credit card. But we tell some that kind of have given us resistance into doing this, it's like, if you deposit regularly into your account, we'll never have to touch your credit card.
Correct.
So that's how we're.
And I'm sorry, we're talking about credit card. Do we have the option of ACH?
No.
Because I know a lot of small companies that they don't want to put that credit card on file, not to track that expense, but maybe they are willing to put an ACH account.
No, that is another process. I know we're working off topic on updating our credit card terminals, technology changes. So we're having to look at bank merchants and work with finance. So it's not just accept a different method of payment. It's a process, so.
So I guess with that propaganda, going back to Mexico with the association that Mr. Fernandez leads, we could help him propaganda there with his associates and members that, hey, join this, the replenishment, and again, it's not, we're not gonna, if you put in money frequently, you're never gonna use it, you're never gonna charge that 3%. It's another bad thing to do, but in case it does happen once every 2-3 months, it's less than the $25 that you're gonna get charged, because you probably replenish it for 50, how much is it, 1%, or how much you charge? 3%, so it'll be $1.50, instead of the $25 fine. So we kind of do that culture and promote it with at the end, it's probably 90% Mexican companies that are, Mexican dredge companies that are falling in these.
Chairman, I have a wild idea. First of all, I can do the math too. So one of the charts that I made in my mind was 1,000 commercial accounts on auto replenish, and depending upon the day of the week, 4,700 total commercial accounts. That's only 22% of the commercial accounts that are on auto replenish.
We're on 0.66.
Yeah, there you go. My wild idea is, why not give the accounts a waiver to pay the fine if they sign up on the spot with auto replenish?
And they can't sign on the spot because the drivers don't have the credit cards.
But somebody's depositing.
Yeah, somebody's
the
depositing.
fine.
They'll send a runner or somebody, but not all drivers have a credit card unless you're the owner. Yeah.
Okay, but the concept idea is still there. It's wild.
Could work somehow,
But,
yeah.
you know, somehow, a carrot and stick, right? Here's your fine, by the way, you can eliminate your fine.
Yeah.
Or we'll give you credit if you have to pay it on the spot with a runner, if you sign up for auto.
Or in the next 5 days, sign up to replenish or whatever, you know, the auto replenishment. So you're trying to do just kind of encourage them to sign up, incentive on that, removing that fine.
I think while they obligate people to use a credit card, I think I would make a motion to double the fine to $50.
On the second repeat?
Oh, just anybody who has to do a U-turn.
Like Yvette said right now, they're already complaining, the smaller companies. So they're the ones that are, I mean, it seems like the small repeat violators. I think it would wake them up a little bit more. And Carlos already said that they're already aware of it. He's already presented it to their association. So since they're aware of it, I mean, what more can we do? And then slap them in the hand a little bit heavier and see what they do and how they
I
work
can,
with them.
based on your recommendation, up the fee to $50 plus a per axle,
Yeah.
and see if that makes, it causes an impact. Because
Well,
right now,
they
they're
can-
paying the fee and it's
But
not.
just to add also, I know that the agenda replies for a tiered, a tiered process as well. Are we going to incorporate that as well, or just leave it at a one-time $50?
I would leave it at a one-time fee. I check with staff, and doing a tiered, it's too much record keeping. We would need a lot of personnel to keep track. At what point are we gonna say, como se dice en español, borrón y cuenta nueva? Every month, we start again, and then have staff constant with Excel spreadsheets, keeping control of where they're at the first stage, second stage, third stage. So with your recommendation, if you'd like, I can move forward in updating the toll rate and bringing it up to $50.
I would second that, but also ask Arturo if he can go ahead.
Well, now we can debate. I mean, let's debate.
Well, I'd second, but then I also suggest that maybe make an additional motion to incorporate some of the associations to get better outreach, let them know, hey, we're increasing, so you're aware of it, so it doesn't come in blind hands.
¿En español?
Sí, en español.
Yo recomiendo empezar primero por avisar los problemas y ver las opciones. La mejor es que tengan saldo. Número 2, entiendo que ya es posible tener una tarjeta de crédito. Esa es una segunda opción. Y la tercera es la multa. Empezar con esos comunicados.
Sí, o sea, la multa ya la tenemos, acuérdate que
sí,
hay una
pero
multa.
aumentarla, porque con eso yo lo entiendo, no sienten que tengan que hacer un cambio. Pero sí creo que es muy importante ir suave, o sea, con el aviso y después ya la...
And I want to go back to your numbers a little bit, because you sit there and said, there's basically 3,606 1 to 9 repeaters, right?
Oh, on the insufficient?
Yeah, insufficient repeaters,
In the
right?
insufficient, we have a total of 3,674 transactions within the past 10 months.
With different companies.
Yes, they're all different companies, yes.
Taking into consideration commercial, it's 4,769 total commercial accounts. That's 75% of the companies that are involved. That's what it looks like.
Yes.
So these are different all these are different accounts, 3,600?
Yes.
And you only have 4,500 registered?
4,769.
4,769.
Out of those 3,600, do you know which are because they have not updated their credit card, or they have actually doesn't have funds?
They don't have funds. They're those
Yes,
insufficient
but because
funds.
they don't deposit the
Right.
check, or the
Correct.
card was declined?
Because they don't deposit, and when they pass, the drivers, when they pass, they don't have money or they don't have money in their account.
What Monica's saying is maybe they were assigned the replenishment program, and since probably one time their credit card didn't pass, it knocked them off the replenishment program, so they don't know that they're not in the replenishment program anymore, no? That's what you're trying to see?
Yes, yes.
We get a report, staff gets a report on a daily basis, and it indicates which credit cards were declined and which account. So staff reaches out to them.
Okay.
Because they don't update their expiration date on their card or something.
But they
So
get a
staff-
notice.
Yes,
Well, they're
yes,
trying to-
before, staff does get a report of all the
Yes.
declined transactions and the accounts of who they are, so staff reaches out to them to update their account profile.
And they reach out before the account goes on zero balance, right? Or when,
No, unfortunately, they reach out to them when the system tries to replenish their account. And if their expiration date is,
For some
if their
reason.
card is expired or something wrong with their card,
Well, and then,
or the card has no funds, who knows? It doesn't tell us the reason, it just declines it.
on the numbers, I think these are,
Yeah.
are you serious? These are accounts? Because the maximum amount we've had was 500 a month, and then in 10 months, so we've done 500, 400, 300. So we've done less than 5,000 instances. And so, I think these are not accounts, these are instances where they've done it, no? The 3,600 and the 52 and the 16?
it's a year period.
Individual.
No, I know, so our max amount should be around 5,000.
The 3,674, they're transactions.
Yes, transactions.
Okay.
They're transactions.
Yes,
I was
yes. They're
thinking
not
they were
accounts.
accounts.
That's why you're saying, that's 75%.
Now
Yeah,
makes
so
sense.
They're accounts.
Transactions.
Yes. Okay, then it makes sense.
And can we-
Because we have about 5,000 accounts.
And can we have this data transfer into accounts? Like how many accounts are,
Repeated offenders?
yes, like,
Yeah, like I said, I have 16 accounts that are from 20 to 35
A month.
U-turns, or repeated offenders.
but what we are interested in resolving is the one U-turn account. So if those are repetitive every month, that's what are we talking about 300 and 600, 3,600 accounts?
The 3,600 only did it once on the 10
Yeah, but,
on 10 months.
okay.
The repeat
So
Well, you said
yeah,
1 through 9.
those are accounts.
The 3,600 only did it once within
Those
the
are
10
accounts.
months.
Which is just about all of them.
But that's accounts. You're saying, are you sure that's accounts?
Yes.
They're transactions.
Transactions, not accounts. So the first stat is accounts, the second are transactions.
No.
Yes.
For example, I have one, I'm not gonna mention names, it's one account within the 10 months. He had insufficient 35 times. It's a repeated, he did it again and again and again.
There's 16 carriers that go from 20 to 35 U-turns. Times.
A year.
No, within the last 10
Month.
months.
10 months, yes.
Yeah, we started in April
Okay,
2022.
10 months.
10 months.
So I guess, but whatever it is that we see on the breakdown, we're not getting the names of these accounts. It's something that I would want to see, and I asked you, Mr. Limon, probably went to legal, and I think legal said no. But how we could get to them, or at least the persons you're not getting to, or maybe the phones are wrong or whatnot. But the associations, or maybe we know them, but I guess that's gonna be a possibility. The possibility of raising it to 50, should shut down at least the second time. Probably won't hit the first timers, but we're picking up a category, the second, third, and fourth, which is still a big amount of U-turns. It's 56 accounts, but it's in total, it's about 110 U-turns.
Well, you can see each month it's gone from
Oh, yeah.
5, 6 to 4%, 5%, so it's minimal. It's dropping.
It is.
We still gotta give some kind
Exactly.
of additional, you know.
So we go ahead and approve that motion. You have to go and take it back to city council and approve that, or just general staff or city manager?
Oh, yes, I'll go ahead and discuss this with Mr. Landit. And, I don't see them saying no, but, also give our new city manager that comes in on Tuesday this opportunity, to discuss it with him. And if I get the green light, we can present it in the meeting for March 20th.
So I'm I'm sorry.
I also want to add, I mean, I can always bring it as an agenda item also, for March, but, I have a question as far as like, this gap right here in the gray, the 17,000, all these accounts that are not part of the auto replenish, is there a way to, in the program, when they go to replenish the monies next time, it stops them if they don't put a backup credit card on file? Like, if, you know, like, make it mandatory that every single account from now on has to have a backup account, a credit card on file. So when they put the money in the account, that's fine, but it's not flagging them that they have to have a backup. Get me? So is there any way that the system can give them like you don't have a credit card on file, when you get to the bridge, it's gonna ring like you don't have enough money, even though you do, because you don't have the credit card or something? Is there a way to do that in the program? Because I think the best thing would be to get this number where all of our accounts are on auto replenish, or not on auto replenish, but have a backup credit card. Because it seems like there's confusion between accounts and instances. I think we need to clarify, like, if we're talking about an account versus an instance, and I think here we need to talk about auto replenish versus having a credit card on file, because they don't have to do the auto replenish, but they need to have a credit card as a backup. So when they get there and it flags their account as 0, it automatically charges them or something.
No. They would need to be on the auto replenish, and they need to identify the threshold amount. If their balance goes below $1,000, charge my credit card $5,000.
So how do we force them to get that?
The court have to continue with an educational campaign.
You
and
make
with
sure-
your assistance, when you have your association meetings, remind your colleagues to look into their accounts and update their profiles, and they can themselves do it online.
But what if they don't? Like, what happens to them?
You make sure, so the way that, my suggestion will be the following. You have to have a card on file, and if they choose to have a card on file, there is a 3% processing fee. If you don't want to pay that, make sure you go and physically cash or check or whatever other form, so that that card is never charged.
Or physically, if you physically go with a card to our office, they don't charge the 3%.
So just do what you have to do if you don't want to pay the 3%. That's very simple, and then we shouldn't complicate that.
At some point, you have to say, your $3 is $1.50, you're fine for just $50.
Exactly. So let's move forward with a $50 increase and continue to tell them, you know,
Our replenishment is the way to go.
you leaving a credit card on file does not mean we're ever gonna charge it. But when you do leave a credit card on file and your threshold is $100, the system will automatically charge it. Now, if you don't wanna pay the 3%, you can see if you're gonna be $100, go deposit.
Yeah,
You
and the person
you
provides
have the solution.
$25, a lot of them will probably have it at 25.
We
Whatever
have
it
the
is,
solution.
But they can control for their credit card not to be charged.
The consumer, me as a consumer, it's up to me. And if I don't wanna go do it, then charge the card.
So just so we could move on, I'm guessing the motion, and I do agree with Mr. Fernandez, whenever that motion passes in council or whatever the procedure is, to give them at least probably a 3-week or 2-week or 1 month, say, hey, May 1st or April 28th, we're gonna, rate is going up to 50, see if that brings it down, and then I would agree on that. And then you'll start with a.
Can I reread the motion?
Yes, you can.
The motion is to recommend council to give a 30-day notice to the accounts that the increase of $50 for the fee for the U-turns or non-sufficient fund accounts.
Or you just said a motion just to give notice. We have to set a
To give
motion.
notice
No, we have to set a
and
motion
to
to apply,
increase
to
and
increase it.
First, you gotta
with a
give a
30-day
notice, 30-day notice, and then to increase it to
No, we have to
$50.
have council,
Okay, the motion is to recommend, we
Yes.
can't do multi,
That's
we
what I'm
can't
saying.
tell them what to
Recommend.
do. We recommend that they give a
no,
30-day
no,
notice.
the 30-day notice after it gets approved. So with a 30,
With a 30-day.
recommend a $50 increase to $50
And
with a 30-day notice
Grace
to,
period.
once approved.
Yes.
Are you gonna add on the outreach as well or no? Because
Well, that's part of the 30 days.
We'll continue doing the outreach.
That's the 30-day notice for that.
Yes.
Okay.
Is it gonna be the $50 for first timers or?
First-timers, yes.
Any timer.
You're not gonna give the incentive to, if you set up a credit card, we'll
give you a star ahead.
No, because this is
Okay.
the push for
This
you
is
to
the push.
do that.
All right, all right.
You wanna avoid the $50?
Yeah, okay. Easier, it's easier.
Bigger
All
part.
right, I agree. Okay, make a motion to extend the time.
And what is this motion? So this motion passes? Everybody in favor, correct? Okay, motion
favor?
passes.
Yes.
Recommendation. Perfect. Need a motion to extend
Motion to extend the time 30 more minutes.
15 more minutes, 30 more? 30?
Second.
If needed.
Okay. Aye?
Necesario.
All right, okay. Moving up to item number 3.
For due to conflicting schedules, we don't have anybody from the police department here to address item number 3.
Okay.
Just to add to item 3, I think what Ria said was we are having them reconfigured via consulting firm that we hired to reconfigure them, because the last time they were configured was like in 2016 or something.
Synchronization?
I mean, synchronization, yes. So they're actually, either we're going out for a company to do it, or we've already contracted the company to do that. But the lights being reprogrammed is already something the city's working on.
Okay, this,
It's not a feature that our city traffic department can do? We can manage our own traffic lights?
They can manually override them, but I guess the most efficient thing is to have them flowing on their own.
I
But
guess I
right
hired a
now,
consultant to do the extent, to do the study and everything like this. But that's common, that's common.
they were synchronized years ago, like set, and then now they're having to manually do them because they're not working properly. So I think they're manually doing them until they, in some intersections, but not all day long.
Like for
Just
example,
during peak hours.
like for example, Mr. Morris, if he wants to get all the green lights in Mines Road, he has to go 40 miles an hour, and he'll probably get all the green lights.
Oh, I have to
But a
go
truck
60
doesn't
I have
go
to go
40.
65 miles an hour to catch them all green. But I didn't say that.
You know the trick now.
No, but I mean, the trucks run much slower than that, so
Yeah.
the synchronization has to be very different than what it is.
Yes.
But in the meantime, can we not have somebody control them manually?
When the officers are there, they can do it manually when they're there, which some of them are.
Well, but we did discuss in the meeting that they have the ability remotely to even see with the cameras and they can control them there. We wouldn't even have to pay the police extra to go out and do that if they were just controlling them from the desk. And it would seem to be cheaper, even if they had to hire somebody extra to do that full time, than to pay the 500,000 in overtime or whatever it is to the police to come and sit and control the lights.
Well, the issue with the police having to be there is because the trucks block the intersections. It's not the controlling of the lights, it's the blocking. Because the trucks are waiting in the intersection and blocking it, or the people can't get
But I
into.
can tell from witnessing it, they only do that out of frustration because they've sat through 3 or 4 cycles of the light because it didn't move in front of them. And if they keep that traffic flowing, then they won't be blocking the intersections.
Well, they will for like Wolf Creek neighborhood and stuff. They're not respecting the curb cut. So people that live in, like, for example,
They're
Wolf
closer to
Creek,
the bridge.
they can't get in because the trailer's blocked. So the police have to babysit the corners to keep the.
Well, that's 1 or 2 intersections. Where the lights are, they wouldn't have to do that, I don't think.
And I've never seen a police officer at Wolf Creek, sorry. I drive that every day. But yes, their presence is needed, but, and there's not an officer at every intersection that is needed. That's for sure. And wherever they're at, yes, they behave a little bit better. They don't get in the middle of the road while the light is red. But on all the other ones,
In La Volta, they do. I've seen the police cars sitting there and they're in the middle of the intersection. It just, they do it out of frustration because the traffic is not moving.
and if they do it, what is the officer gonna do? Nothing.
In this
I
case, you
mean,
just look at them.
what can you do?
What can he do?
Pull him
Pull
over? Back it up more? I mean,
There's no place to back up and he can't pull them over. He just looks at them. So it's not the police being there to keep them from out of the, it's keeping the flow moving. Because when they're not frustrated, they don't have to block the traffic, but
Can we go with Councilmember Perez to the traffic department to see how it's run and?
Yeah,
what
they
can-
invited, I think at the last meeting we had, they invited,
Can we go with you?
anybody can go. You guys wanna go?
With you?
Yeah, it'd be good to see how
I'll
get a
schedule a
VIP
field
tour?
trip.
There you go.
Or put it on.
No, so they can go
Oh, so
to
you
the
go see the
traffic
control center.
department.
To see what it looks like, to see what they can do and what they can't do, just, I mean.
To understand
do
exactly.
it during the peak hours.
Okay.
So we
Perfect.
I'll do it.
see it in the big hours.
Councilmember, you'll reach out to Mr. Peña? or-
Yes.
Okay.
you, Carlos.
Okay, so, moving on to item number 4, SureCom,
We pretty much, Mr. Belkey covered the
correct,
meeting with the governor
yes,
through his presentation, unless you have any other questions.
okay. Perfect. We want to set up the, any other business? Nope, item number 6. Then item number 7, schedule next meeting date.
Motion?
So what date are we,
Oh, we've been meeting the third Wednesday of the month.
okay? The second, the third week of March wouldn't be that spring break, so why are we going to move it
We can
to the 20-something?
Second?
The next Wednesday is March 22nd.
Correct. Are you okay with that date, or should we,
I move that we make the date March 22nd.
perfect? Second? Second, and all in favor? Aye. Our next meeting date is March 22nd.
Who second?
JD.
22nd.
So when do we go to DC?
It'll be, it'll be the first week of March. First week of March. For the city, yeah. First week of March, like March 5th, right?
The 6th through the 9th.
Okay. And then, I need a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? All right, thank you very much. Great information and long meeting, but it was a good update on what's going on. And welcome again to our new